Connection is a big part of how we become leaders, explains Anya-Belle Brown. Anya is a young scholar and a passionate volunteer. She's someone who celebrates the positives of life as a foundation of making the world around us a better place. She's also someone whose ambition and dedication shine through in this episode's conversation about Leaders of Tomorrow. Leaders of Tomorrow is the focus of Season 4 of Connect for Life, the podcast, hosted by President and CEO Melanie Taddeo.
Season 4 is all about leaders of tomorrow. And we all know that leaders come in many different shapes and sizes and different forms. But I always love listening to younger people's perspective of leadership. So today I have the honor of interviewing Anya Brown, who is going to share her perspectives on leadership. Anya, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Melanie.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am a recent graduate of the Creative Writing and Publishing program at Sheridan, and I am a soon-to-be graduate of the Investigations program at Sheridan come this July. I love writing. I love researching. I am somebody who also loves animals. I volunteer at a cat shelter, and I am also someone who is very invested in the world of disability as someone with lived experience, and how I kind of share my leadership role in the world.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. And I've had the pleasure of working with Anya over the last number of months as a placement student at Connect for Life. And what I have observed with Anya is an incredible ways of treating leadership, not only for herself, but with others. And that's why I wanted to have a conversation with Anya regarding leadership. So, Anya, when I actually say to you, what does leadership mean to you? What comes to your mind?
Leadership for me is somebody who stands 10 toes down on what they believe is true in the world, and they are also compassionate and they are loving. And sometimes I feel like a leadership to me is somebody who can have a small group of people just sit around and feel comfortable and feel safe. And that's what a leadership is to me.
So well said. And it's so interesting because I think for a lot of people, leadership is somebody that's ruling or running a country or a business or organization. But real leadership is actually how you described it, and somebody that knows how to work with others and can lead by example. And you're definitely somebody in my mind that does just that. But what qualities do you think are important for you as an upcoming leader in the next generation to have possess?
I would say that just being gentle and kind and understanding, but also still having like a firm hand is really important in leadership. I'm thinking about when I talk to my cousins, I've been in their shoes, and so I want to express my kind of views and my values through, like I've lived that before, and I want you to know that it's okay to make mistakes, but like you have to know that, in order to be a better person, you have to kind of take accountability for the things that you do. And so to me, that is how I would look at a leader, someone who's gentle, who's passionate, who's understanding, and who is not selfish. I think sometimes we forget that, being a leader also means making sure that the people, who look up to you are feel safe in an environment that you've created for them.
That's beautifully said, Anya. And I love the example of your cousins. And I think if you probably look back when somebody shared that guidance to you when you were younger, you're probably like rolled your eyes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. Sometimes it's just by leading by example, sharing lived experiences, and just encouraging. I really like the fact that you also were talking about, somebody who's patient and somebody who's just really gentle. And that those
Yeah.
are great skills. Now, there are different types of leaderships. styles, and all people really resonate with one or the other, but we know we have to adapt. Can you share an example of a time where you were led by somebody that you just didn't connect with that leadership style? Because we all have those experiences.
Yes. I think growing up, have like I have parents who migrated from Jamaica here, and so they're a little bit harsher with their teachable moments. And so I remember sitting around a dining room table and my father teaching me math when I was like in grade three, I believe. And as much as I love my father, he was quite harsh, and and so I felt like, would I ever want to go back to him when it comes to math problems? Because I'm scared of the way that he would react, or maybe he's too firm on his beliefs, and so it doesn't resonate the same way I think he was hoping. And so for me, um, that has always put a stain on my wanting to know more about math through the lens of my father. But I think there's also a thing of learning and growing. And, my father has definitely grown since then, and he's become more gentle, and I really appreciate that. And so I think in the end of it all is, how do we adapt to other people's need for us?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was shaking my head the whole time you were saying that because I totally connected with that because my dad was the same way and it was with math as well. And I was giggling, but my dad is Italian. So I think it may
Yeah.
just be a father thing. They want us to
Yeah.
do well, they want us to excel. But yes, sometimes there is going to be styles that just don't resonate with us. So on the
Yeah.
opposite, there are definitely leadership styles that we are really comfortable with and really grow under. Can you talk about an example of that?
Yeah. I think even just recently with you, I have, your leadership has been something I've admired from the very beginning. And so, when I talk about my experiences with working with you, I'm always saying, like, Melanie's very understanding. She, was gentle. She's kind. Like that's someone I want to emulate my life of. And it's really great because I think too, people forget that it's not just about the present, but about the future. And so if you are a leader, if you are a good leader right now, the chances of people wanting to return to your leadership is pretty high on the scale. And I think for you, that has helped me in like moving forward in my life and what I expect from other people when I am working alongside them. Um, is that I just want someone who, kind of connects with me emotionally, mentally, and so that I can feel comfortable, moving forward and in other spaces in my life.
Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. And you're right, though. It's true because I find even for myself, when I am under leadership of somebody that I feel that I'm safe and that I belong and they want to hear what I have to contribute, I'm going to go that extra mile. So I completely relate with that.
Yeah.
Now, with the younger generation, and I'm going to date myself here. You're a number of years younger than I am. Things are different when it comes to leadership. So it's obviously you're going to have different experiences. How is it for young people? How, and you can speak for yourself and maybe some of your peers that you've had this conversation with. What, why is it important to take on leadership roles as a young person? Why do you think that is?
I think it's important because we always will find ourselves in positions of leadership, whether we, placed ourselves there intentionally or not. And so being able to lead, it creates a space where your voice is heard. And I think a lot of the times our voices can be drowned out when there's a lot of people, and some have very loud voices and some have very soft voices. And so we have to command a room almost. You don't have to be menacing, but you have to show up with confidence. You have to show up as if you have something to say and that thing is important. And so being able to put yourself in leadership roles, whether that's at school or at home or in your friend group, I think is really important as young people. Like a lot of the times we don't realize how powerful our voice is. And so if you can't speak up for yourself, you're gonna find that you are just another speck in this universe, and so people just don't care to engage in conversation with you moving forward.
Well articulated.
We'll be back in just a minute.
Have you or your family ever experienced an ice storm or a massive power outage? Some Canadians experience annual floods and wildfires, while others in North America deal with hurricanes or earthquakes. The question is, if one of these emergencies happens tomorrow, are you prepared? Join Connect for Life in Centennial College on May 14 for inclusive emergency preparedness for people of all abilities, an accredited workshop by Connect for Life, because no one should be left behind.
Now, Anya, one thing I always really appreciated was the mentors in my life and having somebody to guide me on my leadership journey. So I never thought of myself as a leader, even though I probably had leadership qualities such as I was the eldest of four girls, so as a sibling, but as well as at school in my group, my friend group, but also when I started to go into Toastmasters and things like that. I started to learn a little bit more about my leadership style, but also about having a mentor to guide me on how I could be adaptable in leadership style. So, how important do you feel having a mentor on your leadership journey is?
I think it's extremely important. And I think also too, our mentors start in the home a lot of the times. Um, my brother has always been that one person I've looked up to when it comes to how sociable he is, how charming he is, how everybody just gravitates towards him whenever he's out in public. And so I've always looked up to him, and I didn't realize how important that was until I hit my 20s. And I was like, oh, so you really need to be somebody, you don't have to be at like super friendly, but you have to be able to go out and for people to feel like they can talk to you. And so, having that first mentor in my brother was really important. And then obviously, as I move through life, I have so many different people who have mentored me in ways that they might not even know. And it's built me as a character. And so I appreciate when people just kind of, even for 5 minutes, just show you why, you need to be the way that you should be because they're important. They're a part of our life. And sometimes we take them for granted without even
Mhm.
realizing.
Definitely. And, I like that even for 5 minutes because mentor mentee relationships, when it comes to leadership, could be a quick tidbit, it could be a long term relationship. And to this day, I have mentors and they help guide me still. So, leadership is definitely an evolving, ongoing journey. But
Yeah.
my next question I want to ask you, I want you to take a minute and look around you and in this world at the different types of leaders that are out there. And what do you think needs to evolve or change for the next generations of leaders?
Um, well, I know that we tend to platform really bad leaders. And while, yeah, they exist in this world, I think there's a significant amount of good leaders with good hearts. And so it's important for us to kind of look to them because they shape just about everything we do, right? Whether that's in politics or that's in the education field or it's, through our peers, people that we see every day, people we talk to. And so I feel like um, you kind of need a little bit of compassion. Well, not a little, actually. You need a lot of compassion, but you also need to see the world as if it was a glass half full and not half empty. And so, just because you encounter one bad person or you see a few doesn't mean that the rest of the world is that way. And so, you know, y- you have to give it a chance. You have to look at it like, okay, that's one instance, but I know there's somebody out there who I'm gonna come across somewhere in my life who's going to, change how I view a lot of other leaders and why it's important for you to look to those in order to become a leader yourself and to value them as their own leaders.
Yes, well, thank you for sharing that. I always find it interesting because obviously times are different, but there are some basic, like you mentioned, skills and qualities of a leader that can be good or maybe not so great, but that's ongoing. But the younger generation, they're very passionate about social responsibility, about things that matter in their everyday communities. And perhaps a little bit more so than the past generations. Not that they weren't, but it just seems to be more talked about, whether it's social media platforms or just they're finding their voices and they want justice, they want social justice, a lot of things like that. What has been your experience and how have you seen that show up in young leaders?
Um, I would say that it shows up in the things that we consume, so social media or television. And I think that a lot of people look at, the people that lead us, whether that's like an influencer or whoever, and they're like, okay, well, I'm only seeing a very small snippet of this person, and so I'm basing my entire life on, oh, like, they do a couple good stuff. And so that's who I want to be. Or they look at a small snippet of someone and they're doing terrible things. And you're like, so I feel like social media is a huge part in how we as young people kind of view the world and view certain pathways that we feel is going to benefit us and benefit others and so yeah, it just plays a huge part in how we build ourselves up.
Thank you for that. So, as you're preparing for graduation again and going into the world of work, perhaps, or whatever comes next for Anya, how do you see your leadership journey pivoting or changing or evolving?
um I think it's changing through just the work that I want to produce in my life. I think that while every field that I've ever looked into is a form of leadership, whether that was journalism with kind of commanding a room when I'm pitching an idea, or creative writing where I'm, having to showcase my work to other people and kind of share how it will benefit others, or now, working in investigations. And so I think that those little things kind of guide me to the path of leadership in my work life. And I also think now, having experience working at Connect for Life, I have a different viewpoint in how I want to lead in my life.
Thank you for that. And that's so true because I think every program, every experience we have does shape our leadership journey.
Yeah.
What advice can you give young people that perhaps are just learning about leadership? What advice can you give them?
Just be yourself and learn to feel confident in yourself. And so that kind of starts with looking in the mirror every day and just reminding yourself how amazing you are and how you are able to command a room and, you know, and then just building through connections you make at school or with other people and not jumping to conclusions so quickly, because leaders, they're not supposed to um, go back and forth, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense. And um, yeah, just connect with people. I think connection is a huge part of how we become leaders.
Very wise advice, and I thank you. I know, Anya, that as you embark on this leadership journey or continue on it, I know you're going to do great things and you're definitely going to contribute to the future generation in leadership. I want to thank you so much for your time. Would you like to have
Thank
any final words?
Just be yourself and be confident.
That's perfect. Well said. Until next time.
You have been listening to Connect for Life, the podcast. Connect 4 Life is a Canadian-based registered charity committed to eliminating barriers for people with disabilities. Visit connect4life.ca and join us in helping people with disabilities become the champions of their growth stories.